everyone! Do you want to know the development of science in Africa? Africa is blessed with natural and mineral resources. The continent holds around 30% of the world's known mineral reserves, ranging from arable land, water, oil, natural gas, minerals, forests, and wildlife. Also, it includes cobalt, uranium, diamond, and gold. Science emerged in this part of the planet long before Europeans colonized it. Africa has the world's oldest record of human technological achievements,
made
the oldest
using
stone tools
different
in the world.
techniques than the one.
The ancient Egyptian civilization has contributed immensely and made significant advances in the field of astronomy, mathematics, and medicine. Astronomy, it was the famous in the African region. They have three types of calendar: the lunar, solar, and stellar. Lunar, calendars are based on the rotation of the moon around Earth and are used mainly for religious purposes. Solar, a calendar that concerns with the sun, or more precisely, it is based on the Earth's rotation around the sun. Stellar, a calendar that has 364 days with an extra day every 72 years. Mathematics was also known to be prominent in the life of early people in the African continent. The oldest mathematical games in the world originated in African regions.
Medicine is the oldest documented terms in ancient Egyptians. From the beginnings of the civilization in the late 4th millennium BC until the Persian invasion of 515 BC, they had advanced knowledge of anatomy and surgery.
Egyptians' medieval practice went largely unchanged but has highly advanced for its time, including non-invasive surgery, setting of bones, dentistry, and extensive set of pharmacopoeia. The term scientific revolution refers to an era of radical change in scientific ideas that occurred between 16th and 18th century. It supplanted the nearly 2,000-year-old Greek concept of nature that had dominated science. Abstract reasoning, quantitative cognition, a grasp of how nature works, the idea of nature as a machine, and the creation of an experimental scientific method were all hallmarks of scientific revolution. Was the period of enlightenment when the development in the fields of mathematics, physics, astronomy, biology, and chemistry transformed the views of society about nature. The ideas generated during this period enabled the people to reflect, rethink, and re-examine their beliefs and their way of life.
It was also the golden age for people committed to scholarly life in science, but it was also a trying moment to some scientific individuals that led to their painful death or condemnation from the religious institutions who tried to preserve their faith, religion, and theological views. Do you know that the idea of scientific revolution is claimed to have started in the early 16th and 18th century in Europe? Why in Europe? Because it is in Europe where the invention of the printing machine first takes place. It is also because there is blooming intellectual activities being done in various places of learning. And it is also because there are a growing number of scholars in various fields of human interest.
Did you know that in early 1500s, when everyone thought that Earth was the center of the universe, there is a college scientist who proposed that the planet instead revolve around the sun? Let us get to know this person.
His name is Nicola Copernic, and the Latinized version of his name is Copernicus. He is from Warmia, Poland. Here's a timeline to know more about Nicolaus Copernicus. He was born on February 19, 1473. When he is 18 years old, he went to college in Italy to study Catholic laws and regulation before returning home to become a canon. He spent his time studying mathematics and astronomy. He didn't become a canon in Warmia. He returned to Italy and studied medicine and completed his law doctorate.
However, according to a famous scientist, Copernicus may have thought that the skies above Italy were clearer than those above Warmia.
In 1514, Copernicus distributed to his friends a handwritten book outlining his theory of the universe. In it, he proposed that the sun rather than the earth was the center of the universe.
He also proposed that the rotation of the earth accounted for the rising and setting of the sun, movement of the stars, and the seasonal cycle. Finally, he proposed that the retrograde motion of the planets across the night sky was caused by the Earth's motion through the space. Planets sometimes move in the same direction as stars slowly across the sky from the night to the night, but sometimes they move in the opposite or retrograde direction.
Until 1543, when he died, just 2 months before, according to the famous scientist, he diplomatically dedicated the book to Pope Paul III, and the Church did not immediately condemn the book as heretical.
Possibly because the printer included a note that stated that even though the book's theory was unusual, if it helped astronomers with their calculation, it didn't matter if it wasn't truly true. It also helped that the subject was so difficult that only those with advanced degrees could understand it.
The Church did eventually ban the book in 1616. Copernicus died of a stroke on May 24, 1543. He was buried in Poland's Bromberg Cathedral, but in an unmarked grave. In 2005, remains thought to be his were discovered. In 2008, scientists announced that the skull discovered in Bromberg Cathedral belonged to the astronomer. The scientists confirmed it is Copernicus.
The scientists confirmed Copernicus' identity by matching DNA from the skull to hairs found in a book once owned by the astronomer. The skull was then used by Polish police to reconstruct what its owner might have looked like.
In 2010, his ashes were blessed with holy water by some of Poland's highest-ranking clerics before being reburied, and his grave was marked by a black granite tombstone adorned with a model of a solar system.
His scientific contribution, as well as his service as church canon, are both commemorated by the tomb. Copernican revolution is a major shift of worldwide views from believing that the Earth is the center of the universe to believing that the Sun centers solar system, which is proposed by Nicolaus Copernicus. To know more about this topic, let's dig more information that would help us better understand it. Did you know that Copernicus was strongly influenced with a book entitled Epitome, published in 1946 by a German author, Johannes Müller? If not, then now you know. Epitome is the book contains Müller's observation of the heavens and some commentary on earlier works, especially of Ptolemy.
Copernicus circulated a summary of his ideas to his few close friends in a manuscript called Commentariolus or Little Commentary. Commentariolus or Little Commentary means a pamphlet of about 6 large sheets of paper wherein he wrote out a description of startling new arrangements for planetary motions and stated,
Ptolemy's widely used planetary theories appear to correspond adequately with numerical observations. However, they seem quite doubtful because they require the use of certain equant circles. As a result, the planets do not move uniformly either about their firmament nor about its own center. A theory like this did not seem to complete enough nor sufficiently pleasing to the mind. When I became aware of these defects, I often pondered whether a more reasonable arrangement of circles could be found. Such arrangement would explain all the apparent irregularities while keeping everything uniformly as required by the principle of perfect motion.
Before, there were 2 competing models of the solar system, the geocentric model and the heliocentric model. The geocentric model shows that the Earth is the center of the universe. This theory was supported by Aristotle and Ptolemy. For many years, people believed this theory as a fact. The geocentric model was not challenged until Nicholas Copernicus entered the scene. He made a manuscript called De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, or On the Revolution of Heavenly Spheres, where he presented his discussion of the heliocentric model. He explained that the center of the universe is not the Earth, but the Sun. His ideas were an example of what is presently called as a thought experiment.
The manuscript he made is not published immediately because it might cost a huge stir. It was only published after his death in 1543. The publication of his book Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium made an impact to the people. It is safe to say that it became the start of Copernican revolution.
There are people who give evidences to heliocentric theory, which is proposed by Nicholas Copernicus. These were Galileo Galilei and Isaac Newton.
First, we have Galileo Galilei, an Italian who built his telescope and seen the moons of Jupiter and phases of Venus, convincing him that Copernicus was right.
Second is Johannes Kepler, the German contemporary of Galilei, who stated that the orbits of the planets, including the Earth, are traced not in perfect circles but rather eccentric ellipses, unsettling any conception of a rational universe. Third, we have Isaac Newton, an English scientist who published his monumental Principia, laying out the laws of gravitational and mechanics that unwittingly make the arrangement of solar system and of the universe at large a thing of austere beauty, untended by any guiding hand but physics and mathematics. It was not easy because at first the church was against heliocentrism. They believed that the geocentric theory, so whoever believes it will be punished. But evidences were provided with the use of mathematics and technology. The heliocentric model is actually the true model of the solar system.
The whole Copernican revolution was a way to seek out the truth. Its contribution to science, especially astronomy, is revolutionary. If not for it, we may still think that the Earth is at the center. Because of the effort and knowledge of the people behind it, the truth of nature and the environment we live in was known, so we might acknowledge and appreciate their hard works. The fact that we know and aware to the world that we are living in is something to be thankful of.
Sigmund Freud. Freud is a famous figure in the field of psychology. He is an Austrian, a doctor, father of psychoanalysis. He also made a significant contribution in the scientific world through the development of an important observational method, gather reliable data to study humans' inner life. This method is popularly known as the method of the psychoanalysis. Method of psychoanalysis is a scientific way to study human mind and neurotic illness. This method was unorthodox, different from what is acceptable, focusing on human sexuality and the evil nature of man.
Charles Robert Darwin was a British naturalist and biologist known for his theory of evolution and his understanding of the process of natural selection. Darwin was born on February 12, 1809 in the tiny merchant town of Shrewsbury, a child of wealth and privilege who loved to explore nature. Darwin was the second youngest of 6 kids. Darwin came from a long line of scientists. His father, Dr. R.W. Darwin, was a medical doctor, and his grandfather, Dr. Erasmus Darwin, was a renowned botanist. Darwin's mother, Susanna, died when he was only 8 years old. In October 1825, at age 16, Darwin enrolled at University of Edinburgh, along with his brother Erasmus. 2 years later, he became a student of Christ College in Cambridge. Charles Darwin is often cited as the greatest biologist in history. His famous work on the origin of species explains the theory of evolution by natural selection, providing numerous supporting examples.
The Origin of Species, based on the summary of Barnes, 2018. Darwin's book was first published in England in 1859. It details part of Darwin's argument for the common ancestry of life and natural selection as the cause of speciation. He summarized the evidence for evolution by connecting observations of development in organisms to the processes of natural selection. He presented the concept of spatial creation, which claims that God directly created all organisms in their current form, is inferior to the theory of natural selection for its ability to explain the diversity of life. He also discussed classification and homology as they relate to natural selection. He claimed that the theory of evolution by natural selection can explain many phenomena, including the patterns emerging from the classification of organisms, the tendency of embryos to look like with each other and then diverge from each other as their development progresses, and the presence of useless or vestigial organs.
He thought of religion as a tribal survival strategy. Darwin still believed that God was the ultimate lawgiver, and a letter recollected that time he was convinced of the existence of God as a first cause and deserved to be called. The truth is that Darwin sits uncomfortably in both atheist and Christian camps. That is what makes him so interesting.
Darwin and the insufficiency of sound bites. There is no simple answer to questions about Darwin's religious sympathies. This is partly because they change over time. To a first approximation, his trajectory was the Christian orthodoxy of his Cambridge years to a non-biblical deism. At that time, the Origin was published to a more truly agnostic position in later life. A second reason why Darwin is difficult to pin down concerns the fluctuation of belief. In private correspondence, he admitted that his beliefs often fluctuated, even within his most agnostic phases. There were times when, in his own words, he supposed he deserved to be called a theist. The attempt to capture in sound bites such as subtle, honest, and imaginative thinker as Darwin is bound to fail. He frequently confessed his conviction that this wonderful universe could not be the product of chance. The relevance of Darwin's science to his rejection of Christianity. Darwin's science did have a bearing of his thoughts about religion in several respects. The great strides made by Darwin's fellow naturalists in astronomy and earth sciences encouraged in him the view that the more we know of the fixed laws of nature, the more incredible the miracles become. Darwin himself considered that the presence of so much pain and suffering in the world was one of the most powerful arguments against belief in a beneficent deity. And yet, it was to be expected of his theory of natural selection. And in one other crucial respect, Darwin's science did contribute to his eventual agnosticism. Moral and existential issues. When Darwin wrote that he could not see how anyone could wish Christianity to be true, he was not thinking about a supposed incompatibility with science. The issue was rather coherence with a civilized morality. He was thinking about the doctrine of eternal damnation for the unregenerate as it was commonly preached at that time.
Darwin in economics. The Darwin economy fundamentally challenges this theory of competition, which argues Frank is a flawed way of understanding competitive forces throughout many aspects of economic life. This argument rests upon economic theory, but biological, in the form of Darwin's theory of natural selection. General Darwinian principles and the contemporary elaborations of those principles can be fruitfully applied to the study of social evolution, such is the basic premises of the two recent titles by Geoffrey M. Hodgson, Darwin's Conjecture. These are the Darwin's Conjecture: the search of general principle of social and economic evolution, and evolutionary economics without Homo economicus. Although the ideas presented in both volumes relate to social evolution in general, and emphasis is given to how the concepts of evolutionary biology apply to economics. Biology and economics, both considered to be evolving, complex systems, share an intellectual history dating back to Charles Darwin and Thomas Robert Malthus.
Darwin in modern science. Darwin's greatest contribution to science is that he completed the Copernican revolution by drawing out for biology the notion of nature as a system of matter in motion, governed by natural laws. With Darwin's discovery of natural selection, the origin and adaptations of organisms were brought into the realm of science. This was Darwin's fundamental discovery, that there is a process that is creative although not conscious.
Darwin in political science. The principal achievement of Darwin's account of evolution is that it dispenses with the idea of purpose or design. Evolution is a directionless process, producing highly complex forms of life only to wipe them out. There is no progress in nature, but in ethics and politics, the idea of evolution is invariably joined with the hope of improvement. Darwin in agriculture. Darwinian agriculture offers an engaging and bold explanation of why agricultural research must take better advantage of insights from evolutionary biology, and shows just how much plant breeding and biotechnology can learn from evolutionary biology, and takes an honest look at agricultural techniques from genetic engineering to organic farming. As human populations grow and resources are depleted, agriculture will need to use land, water, and other resources more efficiently and without sacrificing long-term sustainability. Darwinian agriculture presents an entirely new approach to these challenges, one that draws on the principles of evolution and natural selection.
Darwin's accomplishments were so many and so diverse that it's useful to distinguish three fields to which he made major contributions. First, evolutionary biology. Second, the philosophy of science. Third, the modern zeitgeist, the general beliefs, ideas, and the spirit of a time and place.